Now it should work again. So my apologies for that. OBS just likes to reset my settings and completely screw us over. But that's all okay. I'll just lead us in again. So welcome everyone to WR PC Tier 4 here for round 7 at Monza. Where tonight we have a stacked grid, as you can see, hoping to replicate what we saw yesterday in the real world racing. And it looks like we're going to get right into the action as well. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Mitska, and because you couldn't see it on the screen, perhaps good to introduce my co-caster for tonight, and that is Domizzy.
Hello, everybody. So yeah, PC Tier 4 here at Monza. We did see this track in real life Formula One just yesterday, where Charles Leclerc did a really good one-stop strategy to win this. But this isn't actual Formula One. This is F1 24. Everybody's starting their current outlaps. Some are also in the pits. I'm excited to see this one. Thanks for having me.
That is all gonna looks like one of the Williams drivers. No, it's not Williams driver. It's an Alpine. David Ricewick is the first to start a flyer. His teammate doing quite well in the standings. That's Gabriel Pratisi. He's second in the standings, so he'll be one of the people to watch out for. Out of our top 5, 4 of the drivers are participating tonight. Of course, your championship leader in DV19 is here tonight, second in the standings. That is Gabriel Pratisi, third in the standings. F1 racer will not be here tonight, so he's going to lose a little bit of traction on that. Tim Tornimo, who's had a great streak of runs with a first, third, and second in the last couple of races. He is 4 in the standings and will likely try to jump up. And then one of our Williams drivers, I believe that is Aiden Hurt. That would be Ben Shawley's teammate for tonight. He is currently 5th in the standings, but he's already dropped down a little bit. It's very close for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They're only separated by 1 and 1 point. DV19 has a comfortable 39-point lead, which will be interesting later on in the race. In the meantime, David is about to finish his lap as he's going to enter the Curva Parabolica, which of course has a little bit wider curbs in a real F1 roll. We see him take similar lines to what the McLarens were doing the other day, taking a very short line through Parabolica and at a 19.0. Pretty decent run, but not good enough as Dennis Langberg immediately goes half a second quicker, and looks like nobody's really able to get close. Maybe Tim can get a little bit closer to that.
Yeah, of course, Tim for that NLR team, who has been really cooking for the PlayStation side, of course, trying to extend their grip onto the PC side here. But yeah, Tim, he looks like he could be on a fast one, and especially as he's one of the championship protagonists in this, he can definitely try and get up there in this race.
Yeah, he's about to cross the line now. How close can he get? He can do a 19.0, so still half a second off. In the meantime, we did see Penny do an identical lap time to Dennis Langrock, so it looks like those will be one of the times to beat, but I'm interested in our championship leader, DV19, who's currently the start sector 2, and Gabriel just started his lap, so we will watch DV try and finish his lap. Had a 26.2 in the first sector, which is quite decent as he now exits out of Lesmo 2. Very good line through there, taking a lot of curb, but not overshooting whatsoever, and a good run, a good exit as well, as we're now heading into the Variante Ascari. Of course, taking a lot of speed through here. That's an awful lot of speed. Just manages to hang on there. He's doing quite nicely here as he's lining up for the final corner, but he's actually not really pushing yet because his ERS is still all the way to the max. So I think he's done an extra warm-up lap, although this first lap already seemed quite decent to Missy.
Yeah, it was looking really good. He did get purple sector 1 here, but of course, with how hard it is to warm up the tyres on this game, especially, it could be really good to get 2 out laps to warm up the tyres as much as possible. But going into that turn 1 here, trying to take as much minimum speed, get down all the way down to gear 3, and make sure to get as much exit speed as possible, as Gabriel Brossetti does set an 18.4 to get the fastest lap of the session so far, a whole 10th faster than Dennis Lagnrock and Penny in the Ferrari. But going into the second chicane, it is just slightly faster than his last lap time. Going into what are those corners called again? I've forgotten. But yeah, going onto the second DRS straight, trying to get as much speed with the straight line speed, especially as this is such a low downforce track. Going into Ascari, hold 2 seconds faster, which is purple in this case for the McLaren man. Trying to use as much ERS as possible. He's still got 20% left going into Parabolica, the final corner of this race. We have seen it multiple times in real life Formula One where drivers have lost it through here, especially Kimi Antonelli in free practice one. But on through the final straight, and he makes it all the way up to fourth place, which is only a few tenths behind P1. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 3 tenths behind currently on his main championship rival, Gabriel. But we've seen Gabriel doing exceptionally well in qualifying sessions before. Of course, he has a few pole positions to his name, although DV19 also has one pole position to his name so far, as we're now watching Justin. But yeah, for DV19, definitely needs to step it up a little bit, needs to go a little bit quicker. But I'm mostly impressed with the lap that Dennis Langrock was able to put in so early. Of course, Gabriel came out a little bit later. Track conditions slightly better at that stage. But to just come out flying, second man putting a time on the board immediately that quick and still in second there is very good, as I think Justin overshot there a little bit in Ascari. That is immediately his lap time invalidated. So instead we'll be watching Aiden Hurt, who is also going for his first flyer, and he's about to approach the Parabolica before he is going to finish that lap. So far we have 16 drivers that set a lap time. Justin, of course, will be diving it into the pitch. The Karchich is probably about to set a lap time, and same goes for Dallin McTeer. Aiden puts in an 18.8, so that is pretty decent. A good lap. You want your first lap to be in a 1:18, especially if you're going to be coming out now. And more drivers will be setting their lap times, and it looks like the Astons are about to finish. Dallin McTeer is still on. He's slightly slower than we just saw Aiden do. But only about a tenth, so I don't think he's going to be too far off. I might be very close to that 1:19.0.
Yes, we've got Dalian McTeer, I think is how you pronounce that, over the line, and that is P10 with a 19.0. Very close in this qualifying session so far, only 5 tenths between first and 10th, so it's still all to play for in this qualifying session. But of course, many drivers might have much better qualifying pace, but not as good race pace, and vice versa as well. So it's all to play for, not only in qualifying, but also in the race. DB19 goes into the pits. Loads of people, I'm pretty sure, on that either their flying laps or their in laps. But yeah, first round of laps looks to be really good, really close between all 20 drivers. So yeah, very exciting. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it's very interesting to see that Tim Byers just put up his second lap time, and he's gone to fourth place with an 18.5. Penny's currently quicker by half a tenth in the first sector alone, so definitely the driver that we'll be watching for now. As Milena just put that Haas on P10, now P11. She's also broken the 1:19 barrier, so 11 drivers that have successfully done so. And Oliver Knott, the man with the most pole positions so far this season, 3 to his name, which is half of the pole positions, quite impressive. Hasn't been able to follow it up as much in the race, but now with a 1:18.6, he's done quite decently. But look at that, Penny's up by over a tenth and a half. He's on his course to go for an 18.3 and take that provisional pole position. Just has to make sure does well into Parabolica here. Don't overshoot, but do take a lot of speed in there, and it looks like he does do so. Does stay in 6th gear, uses all the overtake that he has to his disposal, and it's going to be an 18.4, loses a tenth in the final sector, and that's not enough to take pole position. It is enough to improve, but not by as much as he would have liked.
Yeah, but that also means that it's 3 drivers in the 18.4s, followed by Meow as well, who set a lap time just before Penny. But we're taking a look at Gabriel Prossetti as well here, who's also on a quick lap going through the Sector 2 split down the DRS straight into Ascari. It is a tenth down in his previous lap, but in this final sector, especially in Ascari, you can gain loads of time. Of course, he's trying to use as much track as possible, trying to use as much ERS as possible as well. Going into the final corner here, will it be an improvement? What do you think so far?
I think he's likely going to take it into the pits and will indeed do so. 10th and a half, especially if you make no mistakes on your first run, will be very hard to overcome in those final few corners. And indeed seemed a little bit too much for him. There's quite a few other drivers still on track. Tim is not on a hot lap. Lewis Jones has also aborted. Charles Sutton seems to have aborted as well. And I think the only driver then on a hot lap must be Justin Chevalier. But that first sector time is very good, actually matching Gabriel Petresi there with a 26.1. Let's see how quick he can go through that second sector. We'll need to go for a low 52 as a 52.3, so he has lost a little bit of time in that second sector. Should be on for about a 19.0, just like the other drivers did. So it's going to slot in around that time from Dallin McTeer in P15. Perhaps has a little bit to improve then in the second sector as more and more drivers are now going to come out. Mapataya has come out. He is now on his second flyer. And Justin actually doing a very good final sector. Putting that car in P7. Not going for a 19.0 that we were expecting, but an 18.6. So great run for him. But we are going to move over to Dennis Langrock. He is on for his third run. And he is also bested his first sector by half a tenth.
Yeah, trying to go as quick as possible through the Lesmos as well, trying to get that provisional pole position. These are probably the second runs for most of these drivers. Of course, Justin, his first run was pretty good, but of course not quite enough. It is purple sector 2 for Dennis Lagnarok. He is on track to get that provisional pole. Can he do it though? He goes on to the final straight. No DRS, of course, for this straight. Going into the final corner, brake at around the 50-meter board, try and send it as much as you can. Fifth gear, keep it above 200 kilometers an hour. Use as much ERS as he has got left. He goes over the line. Where will it be? It stays P4 with the exact same lap time as he set before, surprisingly enough. But that is DV19 as well, going into second place. But yeah, still all to play for. Now probably going into some of the last runs for some of these drivers. Most of them trying to get back into the pit lane, get a fresh set of rubber, and get back out again.
Yeah, actually very impressive to see that. So his second run was not as quick, but his third run identical to his first run. So that does just show how good that first run was for Dennis Langrock. As in the meantime, David Reiswig is up by 10th and a half. So he's going for a 118.7 or perhaps a little bit lower. That will move him from 13th perhaps to 9th or even 8th place. So this could be an important run for him if he wants to put himself in the top 10. He's now coming through Parabolica, down to the main straight. He's already saving a little bit of ERS, but it doesn't seem to lose much. He's actually gone up to P7, so good final sector as well. Great job by him. In the meantime, more and more drivers are starting to leave the pits. Meow is on for a lap. Gabrielle is about to start one too. But Meow, of course, first in line. DV19 has completed already. David Reiswig just did. Oliver Knott also on for a lap. And Meow's actually up by a 10th. Looks like his first sector wasn't that great throughout his previous lap. But already up by a 10th. Still slightly slower than Gabrielle was. But with the 10th that he already has, if he can match his sector 2 and 3 time, he almost loses it. He could have been on for a provisional pole, but doesn't seem like it is possible here.
I also would just like to add that Gabriel Presetti is here chasing for his third pole position of this season, trying to tie it up with Oliver Knott, recently promoted to ET8 manager. Congratulations, Oliver. But anyway, DV19 also chasing for his second pole position of the season. Gabriel Presetti here goes purple sector 2. Don't know how much faster it is, but of course going into this final straight, overtaking the Asamine, trying to move out of the way, brake just around the 50-meter board. He goes into 6th gear, which might not be faster, then going into 5th gear, use as much of that overtake button as possible, goes across the line. Can he get into the 3s? He doesn't go into the 3s, and he goes into the 18.1s. Very, very quick lap for the ABS driver, as it is a whole 3/10 faster than DV19.
Yeah, he said it quite early on though, because we have still 2 minutes and 10 seconds left on the clock. So it looks like that is qualifying over for Gabriel. He is still using a little bit of ERS, but he does not have the fuel to go for a second run. So he's done. He has put in a lap time which is about 3/10 quicker than his nearest competitor, so a very good run. I'm not sure if anyone will be able to improve it, but if they want to improve it, they will just have one more shot at it. And I think currently only Milena is on a hot lap. Did improve in the previous run by 4.5 tenths, so that was quite good. Not sure. Yeah, she's going flat out, I do believe. No, she's not going flat out. She's still warming up. So she's going for a second warm-up, I think. Does have the fuel for DV19's actually left the session. So it looks like he might have crashed out. So he won't be improving on his lap time. That might hurt him later on if more and more drivers are going to improve. As Charles Sutton has also started his lap just now. So let's watch Charles and see how far he can move up. Currently, P17.
Yeah, going into the first two corners here, into that first chicane, it's very important to get that chicane right. If you don't, it does not set up your lap really that well. Use as much ERS through this little curve. Now going into the second chicane here, he is only slightly faster than his previous lap time. Can he improve going into the Lesmos, into the DRS detection zone? Of course, it is not needed in qualifying as you get DRS as your lap progresses, but still good to note for the race. Goes all the way as far as the track allows him, opens the DRS into this straight, going into Ascari here, turning in left, right, then left into sixth gear. Use as much track as possible without leaving the track, of course. Use the ERS on the exit there. Gabriel Prossetti does retire from the session. Is he confident in getting that pole position? We'll have to find out. Charles Sutton going into that final corner here. Have we got any other drivers out on laps? Everybody else is out on a lap. But Charles Sutton, can he take pole position? He only moves up to P15, unfortunately, and he is one of the first to finish. DV19 also does not improve. Penny is slightly improving, though. But will it be enough for him to take that provisional pole? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it looks like that second sector is quite good. It's about matching what Gabriel was able to do there, but looks like in his previous runs lost a lot of time in that final sector. Tim Beyer moves up into P6. This last corner is going to be crucial for Penny. Nail it here, and you might be on to the first row. Definitely could be improving enough to be DV19, but is it enough for pole position? We'll find out now. Penny crosses the line in an 18.3, lose a little bit in the final sector, so not enough for pole position there. Meow is invalidated, he won't improve. Dennis Langrock still can't beat his lap time that he did at the start, as David Reiswig is 16 thousandths down currently on his fastest lap time, but if he does manage to improve, might still gain a position or two. Pikarczyk still out, Kevin West still out, so 3 more drivers yet to set a lap time. First up is David Reiswig. It's gonna come through now, has just cleared Parabolica. Can he improve here? He does improve by 1 position, goes into P6. And with all the other drivers that have aborted laps as well or have taken the checkered flag, means we have qualifying done. And it's pole position 3 times in total now for Gabriel Patrese. And it's a 10th.5 clear on the entire field. That is what you call a statement for qualifying.
Yeah, very good qualifying performance for Gabriel Prossetti. Of course, Penny 1.5 tenths behind. Close, but not quite close enough. Let's take a look at everybody else. Oliver Knotts takes 3rd place with DV19, the current championship leader, in 4th place. We are followed by Meow, then David Reiswich, followed by Dennis Ragnarok, and the NLR man Tim Bayer, then Lewis Jones, Justin Chevalier, who is 5 tenths behind 1st place, DTM Aidan Hergt in 11th, Tim Tornimo, I think, followed by Epic Lexter, CRE Pikarczyk, and yeah, everybody else. We don't have time to say everybody else, but I'm pretty sure it's a lobby restart for WR, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, we indeed will have a lobby restart now, so the weather that we see, even though it is sunny, is not something for us to worry about now, but we will need to turn back on the slipstream, so the goal sting has to be turned off once more, so we don't have that advantage in qualifying, but we must have, of course, slipstreaming enabled and collisions enabled for the race. Otherwise that would be slightly odd, so that is why we will have a lobby restart. Gives us a little bit of time to relax, to see what we have seen all the way through. Currently checking to see what I find the chat. Tim Turnemo saying that everyone should retire as soon as possible so that we can get started. But I think we have a little bit of time to talk about this Monza circuit, because it is one of the classic racetracks out there. And believe it or not, this racetrack already exists for 102 years. It was the third ever purpose-built motor racing circuit, so built in 1922. Was built in 110 days only, and its first race for F1 was in 1928, although of course that was not part of the official F1 calendar since then, because of course the official F1 calendars only start in the 50s. Most notably, 2 world champions have also passed away there. First ever champion Ascari, 1955, and Joachim Rindt, 1970. So it is a race with quite some history, sadly. But the main things that we need to know, what are the corners, what is what. So we have, if I count everything right, 11 or 12 corners, don't know, 11 corners, there we have it. 11 corners, 2 DRS zones, and there will be a detection before the start-finish straight with a zone on the main straight, and a detection just before turn 7, that is before the second Lesmo, and then from after a second Lesmo, which is across the Curva de Seraglio, and that is your second DRS zone all the way leading up to Variante Ascari. The track itself, 3.6 miles exactly, 5.793 kilometers, a fairly long track, of course not the longest one on the calendar, and with that you should know everything that you need to know about Monza.
Also, Monza, a very good track as well. Fan favorite for multiple Formula One fans around the world. Personally, it is one of my favorite tracks to race at in this game. Also, very just satisfying if you get all the corners right. And I hope everybody who drives it does enjoy the track, as it has got loads of history. Of course, crowned multiple winners, especially with crazy races like 2020 and 2021 in real life, with Daniel Ricciardo taking the first McLaren 1-2 since 2012, I believe. Since then, I mean, we've already seen the McLaren domination this year, trying to fight for that Constructors' Championship. But this isn't real life Formula One. This is F1 24. So yeah, track with loads of history, very big fan favorite. Ferrari's home as well. So yeah, very excited to see what kind of racing we have here. Loads of DRS straights as mentioned, but yeah, excited to see how many overtakes are going to happen here. So yeah.
I do think we will see quite a bit of overtakes, and of course here McLaren's doing slightly better because they are already leading the constructor standings, leading by 20 points over Williams, who we find in second, although for McLaren it is mainly DV19 who's raked up the points. 108 points for the McLaren constructor, 107 on the name of championship leader DV19. So he will be one of the men to watch out for, although of course Gabriel will be on pole position and looking to chip away from that championship lead that DV19 currently holds. Currently waiting for him to get back into the lobby. He's just gotten back in, so we will wait for all the drivers to get ready. We've just seen qualifying, so we know how that ended. The race itself will be 27 laps. Weather will be dynamic, so it can rain, but likely. In Monza usually doesn't rain that much. And of course the main difference that we see here, as in contrary to the real world, is that the real world had a little bit of remodeling done to the track, and that's something that we have not yet seen here in F1 24, and I do believe that we won't see that in the games at least until the next iteration, which will be F1 25, although of course for that we will have to wait another 10 months, I think, before that does arrive. But nonetheless, here WR, we have a lot of action coming up, so definitely don't go anywhere. Make sure to get yourself ready, a little bit of food, a little bit of something to drink, because in a couple of minutes we will go live, and then you'll have some great action for the next 35 to 40 minutes. Now have a little bit of time until the drivers are readying up. I see a few are readying up, but I don't see the call yet from Tim Tornimo. Seeing the qualifying session so far, Domizzi, what are your thoughts? Who stands out for you?
Well, we have seen Oliver not be really good in qualifying, but unfortunately cannot do that in the race. He is, I'm pretty sure, 12th in the standings. Wait, where is he? No, 14th, sorry. But he did take third place at this track. Of course, in this track, qualifying doesn't really matter, but it's more the race that matters. We did see Gabriel Brossetti get that pole position here, followed by DV19. So DV19 already 40 points ahead of Gabriel Brossetti. Unless DV19 does have a little bit of a poor race, Gabriel Brossetti might be out of this championship fight. But still, we've still got 5 races to go, including this one.
Yep.
So it's still to play for, of course. So yeah, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. This is going to be a very exciting race.
Yeah, we will still have a few weeks, of course, until that fight is going to narrow down. We do see that DV19 usually picks up a few places in the race, so I do see him coming up there trying to fight with Gabriel. And of course, seeing 3 weeks ago in Qatar when both of the drivers were there, that there was contact in the final lap when they went 3 wide into the hard right-hander, which was a little bit too much, resulted into contact and resulted in a pretty crazy end to that race. And yeah, with Gabriel being absent last race and a race win for DV19, he has increased that championship by quite a bit, as you already mentioned, from what was now 40 points, used to be only 15, so he's done really, really well on that end. I'm not sure if DV19 is going to miss any more races, but if he doesn't, it's looking fairly good for him. It just needs to make sure he keeps on scoring consistently. Second place is minimum, but if you do manage to beat your championship opponent here, you're going to make sure that you put in a little bit more of a cushion and can hopefully close it, at least for him, before the final race on the calendar. In the meantime, we are loading in, so we are about to get ready for the race. We still have everyone in here. We have a few stand-in drivers as well. Which of the drivers are you actually familiar with, Domizzi? Any of the drivers you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've been someone who's been in this community for nearly a year now, so pretty familiar with most of these drivers. Um, Definitely will be looking at um, DV19 as well, as I've said before, for that TF10 team. Yeah, just excited to see how this race goes on as well. Gabriel Brossetti for that ABS team. I'm pretty sure he was at WOR before the team unfortunately closed in the early stages of this game cycle. But still, loads of races to go. Still got 5 races to go. So, yeah, but it looks like it's going to be rain for the race in WR Tier 4. So, very exciting to see which drivers have practiced rain, which drivers will show themselves in the rain. I have not been on this commentary position for the past few races, so tell me, please, has there been any rain in any other races so far?
I'm not sure if I can recall, but if we're going to go to the in-game view, it is absolutely pouring here in Monza. And we see a couple of the drivers, some are being like, what's going on? Other people are like, bro. Then we have some words that we have to bleep out if I were to mention them out loud. And a couple other drivers are laughing. So I think this is going to shake up things quite a bit. I'm very interested to see what that is going to do, especially for the drivers up on top. Of course, Tim Tornimo is on for a really, really good run with 3 podiums in a row. DV19 has been incredibly consistent, of course, your race winner last week out in Abu Dhabi. And yeah, for Gabriel, after that extra week break, he has to make sure that he comes right back into it and closes in on that gap towards DV19. Tim can make a little bit of a jump because F1 Racer third in the standings isn't here. And if Tim picks up more than 1 point, he will be at least third in the standings. And if he even beats Gabriel Patrese here tonight, he will be second in those standings. So a lot to fight for him as well. And I think those 4 drivers mainly will be fighting for the championship this time around. Although for F1 Racer, definitely needs to make sure he's there next week and all the races onwards if he still wants to put in a bit for that. Now the loading is about done. Once the loading is ready, we can see what tires the drivers will start on. I think they will start on the intermediates. Of course, it is up to the game to decide what we're going to do with that. Likely we'll see 1 stops, as we usually do here in F1 24 and also at WOR. But tactic-wise, especially if it's going to dry up, we could see some interesting bits. But if I look at the weather right now, I don't think it's going to be clearing up, don't you think?
Yeah, looking at the conditions currently, it is looking at least intermediates. There's no way any of the drivers should even be considering the slick tyres in these conditions. But I'm very excited to see which of the drivers are here who really will perform in the wet. Very excited just to see how this race pans out. Most of these drivers I would not expect to do much wet practice, especially as Monza is not a track that usually rains. Can't recall the last actual Formula One race where it did rain here at Monza, but it's just, yeah, very exciting to see. What do you think? Who do you think will be one of the early winners of this race?
Well, I think what is mainly important is that they keep it clean through the Prima Variante, so through the first 2 corners, because I do think we're going to see some contact there, and it looks like we're about to be underway with 3, 4, and 5 red lights on, and immediately they're off. And we are on our way with a pretty decent start from the Ferrari on the inside. Look at that. Another Alpine is coming out. That's David Reiswick. We saw a banger of a start. He's all the way up into P3 already. It looks like Gabriel's going to keep it. But can we keep it clean through turn 1? It looks pretty smooth so far. A little bit of wheel banging, but no real incidents coming through so far. But what I'm interested in, if I look at DV19 right now, who is in P7, is what we can see in our spectator menu position change. Look at that. David Reiswick picked up 3. Same for Langrock and Tim Beyer. With Oliver Knott, DV19 losing quite a bit as we see one of the McLarens going off track just a little bit there. So we've had our fair share of incidents now. Justin Chevalier's dropped down the order. Aiden's dropped down. And also Epic Lexer. And so far the best race start is for Picarchich. He started in P14, currently in P9.
Yeah, also Dennis Lagnarok starting from P7, moving all the way up to P3. And as you mentioned, David Reiswich as well, moving up 2 positions, 4 positions up for Charles Sutton and Kevin West, and Uli Mopecha are up 4 positions as well. Unlucky start for the back 3 as they got involved in incidents in that sector 2, unfortunately. But it's still Gabriel Prossetti who keeps the lead. He's 6/10 ahead of Penny currently. So let's see if he can take that. It looks like it's full wet conditions for this race today. And I'm not sure if it's going to clear up. I'm afraid. I'm not sure.
Now we've just got a call from Spectre, who is also racing here tonight, that it will not be clearing up. We will have rain the entire race, the entire 27 laps, and with the drivers now on the full wets. I wonder if at some point we are going to switch to the intermediate compound. We saw just a moment ago Lewis Jones awfully close to Tim Beyer, but the gap has now increased to 5/10, and it looks like the driver closest to overtake will be Charles Sutton onto Dallin McTeer. So let's see if we can go over to Charles Sutton, who does seem to be looking to have a look inside Lesmo 1. As Epic Lexer gets a penalty for corner cutting. Ooh, sliding a lot there is Charles. As now he's looking to get a decent exit out of the second Lesmo. We see that Dallin goes a little bit wide there, a little bit of oversteer, but it won't be enough to move in. As in the other hand, it's Tim Turnimo who does get Meow on the run to the Variantes car. So he's got another overtake done. Picarchi actually is all the way up into P8, and championship leader DV19 only managing P9 so far, so it looks like he's not feeling too comfortable in this wet weather. The driver who is very comfortable in here is your race leader, Gabriel Patrese. Has a 7/10 lead, almost 8/10 now onto Penny, and looks like Dennis Langrock is going for the overtake here as he's down on the inside of Penny. So a little bit of tussling for P2, but so far for Gabriel, a pretty good start to the race.
Yeah, we can also see some of the drivers who have really prevailed in this race during the rain, especially drivers like Gabriel and Dennis, who Dennis has moved up 5 positions in this race already. So, yeah, we can see some of the drivers who are good in the rain and some that aren't so good in the rain. It's still to play for. It's still a long race, but it is a purple sector 1 for Dennis Lagnarok as he is chasing down the ABS driver for that first place. But Gabriel Patrese needs a really good result here if he wants a chance at that championship, especially as this might be one of his best chances to do so, as DV19 did lose loads of positions on the start. It's a bit slidey for Dennis Lagnarok out of the second Lesmo, but he is within range to try and go for a move. Of course, DRS is not enabled, especially in these full wet conditions. Going into Scari, braking points are also much different in the wet than what these drivers are used to in the dry. So they're going to have to adapt to that throughout the race. See David Reiswig as well in that 4th place as DV19 gets a 3-second time penalty. And I'm expecting that not to be the last penalty of this race for the drivers here.
Yeah, if you get a penalty that early on, that's not looking good for you. In the meantime, we were watching Dennis Langrock, who took a very aggressive line into a Scari. Very impressive to see him go there, as he's now really closing in. Look at that, using a lot of ERS to try and get closer to Gabriel. He's closed that gap by about 3/10 in the last lap, but he seemed to be especially quicker in that first sector, losing a little bit after a Scari. But definitely managed to gain at the start-finish straight, and it looks like David Reiswig already isn't able to keep up. He's at 1.5 seconds away from Penny, so the top 3 a little bit in a world of their own, although Lewis Jones will be looking to join that in a moment if he can clear Tim Beyer in not too long. He's only about 3/4 away from him. Picarchitz currently getting close to Oliver Knott as well. There's a sizable gap between him and Lewis, 2.6 seconds, and also Tim Turnimo's lost a sizable amount of time onto Picarchitz in P8. As for DV19, he's stuck in P10, but with that penalty applied, if the race were to end right now, that would mean that Gabriel gains back all of the points that he lost last week for not being there. Definitely would make the championship more interesting, but I don't think we will see DV19 finish at P10. We'll need to try and go up. And for Gabriel, it's looking in his rearview mirrors because Dennis is closing in.
Yeah, also another 3-second time penalty, this time striking the Williams man of Ben Shorley, unfortunately. But yes, Dennis Lagnarok slidey out of the exit of that last corner. Dennis Lagnarok does set fastest lap once again. He is really showing his pace in the wet here. He's in the slipstream now of the driver. We can see some of the strategies here now. Some drivers on wets and some on the inters, but it looks like the inters might be the faster tyre. But it might be a little bit of a crossover here, as Oliver Knott is right next to Picarchik as well on those wet tyres. Still, the gap is closing and closing corner by corner between Gabriel Patrese and Dennis Lagnarok. If the race finishes like this, it would help massively for Gabriel's championship chances here in this race. Penny as well trying to snatch up some of those positions as well, but that's Dennis Reiswig as well, 2 seconds behind, unfortunately. So the trains you were expecting to see in this race are jeopardised by the rain, unfortunately, but I'm not sure if it will dry up or if it will get wetter here. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it still seems to be pouring down, as Milena has also picked up 3 seconds for multiple warnings in form of a penalty. I do think the wets seem to be slightly better now. Oliver Knott has managed to clear Picarchis though, so perhaps we're going to see a crossover point soon. But the top 6 still on the wets. I was expecting actually that the game had forced everyone onto the wet tires, which is why I did not check the tires earlier on. So thank you for calling that out, Pedro, to double check that. And here we go for a move on the lead. Down the outside, we have Dennis Reiswick, as I just clicked the wrong button, but we do see the move here being completed by Dennis. He seemed to be the quicker driver, but now the big question is, can he pull away? Because Penny behind has been able to keep that gap close, as DV19 has now re-overtaken Dallin McTeer, but will need to really fight for it. And look at that, he is on the inters, on the inside of him, which will be the outside for now, and then the inside again in the next corner, and the Seconda Variante, but looks like he has stayed ahead, and down the inside, Charles Sutton is trying to have a cheeky look, but can they keep it on the track? This is a very risky move to make. There is not an awful lot of space here. He pushes Dallin McTeer wide, pushes him onto the gravel, but Charles Sutton does manage to take P11, and for my appetite, that is a free spot for him as well. So good moves all the way around. Don't think Dallin will be too happy with that, but with 2 men going through, especially in the rain, one has to yield, or gonna have to take it to the ditches.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if the stewards are called between that incident, as Oliver Knott does take another 3-second time penalty, as Dallin was unfortunately pushed off by Charles Sutton, but with the nature of that corner, it is very hard to overtake through there. Taking a look at Lewis Jones here, he is just behind Tim Beyer. Ben Shorey takes another 3-second time penalty to increase his total to 6 seconds of time penalties. Dennis Lagnrock takes that fastest lap once again with a 31.0. CRE, Lewis Jones, can he make the move? He looks to the outside, he looks to the inside, he brakes later. Can he make the move into the corner? The inside turns into the outside. Ben Shorey takes another 10-second penalty as he retires from the session, but it's still side by side between Lewis Jones and Tim Beyer. Lewis Jones on that inside line, but it is the outside for Tim Beyer, which turns into the inside for this corner. Who can stay ahead? It looks like Tim Beyer is ahead, but Lewis Jones is not letting go of that position. It's still side by side going into the 2 Lesmos, bit of wheel banging between there, but Lewis Jones does look to take that position away as he goes for a charge to get back into this championship fight. We see a few more position changes in the background as well. But let's take a look at Dennis Lagnrock here. He is a whole 5/10 in front of Gabriel Presetti. Very, very good race for him so far. He looks to be really good in the wet conditions.
Yeah, it's starting to look like the Inters are coming alive a little bit more, because Oliver Knott closing in on the pack quite quickly. He's now only at 2/10 away from Tim Beyer, and that gap was much, much bigger a couple of laps down. So can he go for a fastest lap in a moment, or will he have to wait a little bit longer for that? And here we have fastest lap by over 4/10 quicker than your race leader, Dennis Lagnrock, and he has now gone with the overtake. This is your crossover point, and Picarchik has decided this is my time to head into the pits, and the same can be said about Kevin West as Epet Laxer picks up another penalty. Picarchik is gone for the Inters. I can only assume Kevin West going to do the same, and indeed he will. So this is your crossover point. I think your Inter runners, I'm not sure if they're going to go try and take it all the way. I do think it will be a little bit safer to make one stop and go for fresher Inters. But for the guys that were on the wets, they will now have to consider, when do I want to come in for the pit stop? I think for now, especially with the gap for Oliver, not 2.7 seconds to Reiswick, and then Reiswick to the leaders, 3.3 seconds won't be too much. But I do think David will likely be coming in first. Lap later, maybe Dennis and Penny and Gabriel, unless they want to decide we need to go in now to try and preserve our lead, because the Inter's definitely the quickest start for now.
Indeed, this does benefit the Inter runners here, as they do not have to box for fresh rubber, which means they can stay out ahead. But I don't believe those Inters will be able to reach it all the way to the end of this race. There is still 19 laps to go, so there's still a lot of laps to go. But the Inter tyres do look to be much faster than the wets now, especially as Oliver Knott goes 4 tenths faster with his fastest lap attempt. And that is Tim Moreno who goes even faster on those inters, which means those inters look to be much faster than the wet compound of tyres. You can see Oliver Knott has already decreased that gap by around 6 tenths within a lap. So it's only a matter of time until he overtakes David Ricewick and the rest of the front runners. But the wets can also still hold on. They are not terrible tyres in this race, but the inters do look to be faster as it is getting much drier in this race. But Dallon is 5 tenths faster on this lap than he was in his previous attempt. He is trying to regain the lost positions. He lost by within that incident between him and Charles Sutton, as he does actually stay ahead of Charles Sutton, as DV19, the championship protagonist here, is all the way down in P12, which really helps out Gabriel Prossetti, as he's unfortunately down in third place after being in first place towards the start of this race.
Yeah, we just saw DV19 having a little bit of look into Ascari to see if he could outbrake Charles Sutton up ahead, and he's definitely getting a lot closer. As for the last lap, Tim Turnimo was 6 tenths quicker than Dennis Langrock was able to do. He now does a 31.0, but we're interested in Oliver Knott. Look at that, 29.8. That is 1.2 seconds quicker than everyone up ahead, and he has closed the gap to David Ricewick. He is now within DRS range. Now we're seeing the Inters having more than a second of advantage. This is the time that you have to go in. And indeed, Gabriel is the first of the top 3 that has gone into the pit. So he's decided, I've waited enough. I need to go now. And this is going to force all the other drivers to head into the pits. But what we do see, those tires need to get into the right window. Which does mean that Gabriel likely will lose a little bit of time. And that the overcut might be a little bit better. Although you will lose a little bit of time after you just exit the pit. So we will have to keep a close eye onto Gabriel when the other drivers are going to make a pit stop, and I can only imagine that Dennis and Penny are going to follow. But look at that, side by side they go, but down the inside just before Ascari, Penny makes that move stick, and that is a lot of overspeed that he got out of the second Lesmo. He now has the race lead, but I can only assume that they are going to come in now. You're losing more than a second a lap, and with 17 laps to go, the Inter's definitely the better tires. And with the rain seemingly staying similar, you have to come in now, as they really slide it into the Parabolica, going full on. But are they going to come in? It looks like they want to stay out. They're still staying out. They're taking a big risk here. I'm not sure if that is the best decision, because look at that, Oliver Knott is about to overtake David Ricewick for P3, and he will be hounding down the top 2, currently 4.4 seconds away, as Gabriel has tried to close the gap onto Aiden in P15, but I think he's going for some overtakes very, very shortly. And look at that, it's going to be a double overtake even. He already has dispatched Aiden. He is now going to dispatch Justin Chevalier, so that's 2 drivers on one straight. And yeah, he has. He's gone past Justin and Aiden. Now in P10 and in free air, he's going to make sure he's going to gain a lot of time. So if his tires can hang on to the end, I think he's made a master strategy call by coming into the pits 2 laps ago.
Yeah, this is really the time that the Inters are much faster. This really helps out Oliver Knott's strategy for the race win. Now he's gone from one of the contenders for only to pick up a handful of points to be possibly one of the podium contenders. Same with Tim Tornimo and DV19 after losing so many places on that first lap. He's currently fighting back with those faster intermediate tyres. But as I've said before, I do not believe those intermediate tyres will last all the way to the end of this race. So they'll definitely have to box, as well as most of the grid is now on the Inters, as Dennis Lagnrock and Penny do stay out another lap as Oliver Knott breaks into the 29.1s.
Yeah, with Dennis Langrock only doing a 32, that means that Oliver Knott has gained 1.1 seconds, with Meow now overtaking Charles Sutton. He's decided to go into the pits. You have to go about now. Look at that. Gabriel sets that fastest lap time. That's a 28.9, 1.3 seconds quicker than your current race leader. But yeah, with him being in free air, it's going to be easy picking up time and easy overtakes for the time being as he's trying to get closer onto Meow. He is only going to close in by about half a second maximum, I believe, because those drivers up ahead on the Inter still have good rubber. The gap now 3.8 seconds, but free air is very, very good news for him. He's tagging along the drivers that are behind him, but they're on 11 lap old tires, as are Justin and Aiden. And for Lewis Jones, the first driver that stopped after him, he is 4.3 seconds away from those drivers. So looking very good for Gabriel so far, but we have to see if strategy can be interesting here. We saw it yesterday in the real world race, where one pit stop less caught some drivers off guard. I'm not sure if we're going to see the same thing here tonight, but if Dennis and Penny aren't considering going all the way to the end, they will have to stop now. And there goes Dennis Langrock, your race leader, into the pits. Penny does stay out, but Dennis surely going to be coming out behind Gabriel. And I can only wonder if he stays ahead of Lewis Jones or not.
Yeah, very interesting strategy called trying to go for that overcut. Not sure if it'll work much better than the undercut strategy, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see. Some of the old runners as well. He does come out behind Gabriel Rossetti and behind some of the other older runners as well, as Tim Beyer breaks into the 28.6s with that McLaren. But he still does stay ahead of Lewis Jones. Dallin McTeer with a 28.6. And that's yellow flags in Sector 3. I think that's a Red Bull round as a full safety car comes out, which helps Penny out and the rest of the people who have not boxed in this race, as they can now safely pit without any consequences and still stay ahead. So, very interesting race here. Epic Lexa does go into the pits, but it's still to play for in this race. There's a drive-through as well for Kevin West, which might mean his race is currently finished as well. But loads of these drivers prompting to staying out, and it looked to be the better strategy in this race. What do you think so far?
Well, I think that the drivers further up ahead can be very lucky with that safety car. For DV19, that is also pretty good news because he was not on for contention whatsoever. But for your top four, they can make a pit stop and they're likely going to be coming out ahead of Gabriel, who would have been your race leader. So for Gabriel, this is perhaps his worst case scenario. For Penny, on the other hand, he's likely going to keep that race lead and will have the fresh rubber now. He's now going to be coming out. Oliver Knott, of course, everyone who was ahead is going to be coming in. I don't think Gabriel, while Gabriel should stay out, is indeed going to stay out. But DV19 has picked up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. As his race could not get worse, it does get worse. And for Gabriel, actually, he is still in P3, so he doesn't lose all too much. That's a positive. But the drivers ahead, they have 4 laps of fresher rubber, as of course the entire field has now come into the pit lane. But for DV19, what could have been a great race has turned into a nightmare.
Yeah, this really helps out the strategy of Oliver Knott, as I said earlier in this race. Maybe those fresh Inter tyres can help him get possibly the race win. So far in the season, he has gotten 3 pole positions, and with that, he has not converted it to any wins so far in this race. So we've got to wait and see. But let's take a look at the standings. Oliver Knott has DNF'd in most races. His best finish has been P4 in Belgium. So maybe this can be his best finish so far, as he attempts to get Kick Sauber back into the championship fight, as they are 30 points behind that raging McLaren team led by DV19, but it's still Penny up ahead for that Ferrari team. I'm pretty sure he is a reserve, but very good race, really good race to show how he deserves that full-time seat for the rest of the season. But now everybody is right behind the safety car, trying to warm up those intermediate tyres. It looks like it might have stopped raining. I'm not sure about that one though, but I still do not think that there will be a crossover between intermediates and the slick tyres.
No, I don't think so either. The rain is still out there. We do see some more drier lines appear as DV19 is going to dive into the pits, but he has to. So if he dives into the pits now, I believe he can get rid of that penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Does mean that he has to start all the way at the back, but will at least get rid of most of his penalties, at least aside from the 3 seconds that he had for track limits. So let's now look at all the penalties that we have. Kevin West has a drive-through penalty. I do think he is going to take that penalty now. DV19 is going to get rid of 10 of those 13 seconds, so we have 3 left. Oliver Knott has 3 seconds to his name. Same goes for Tim Beyer, Milena, and 6 seconds for Epic Lexer, who caused this safety car. And Kevin West has stayed out? Yes, Kevin West has stayed out, so he's not taking that drive-through penalty just yet. Bit of an interesting move, because you don't only lose 1 position, unless he, of course, wants to extend that safety car by another lap, and he's going to come in next lap. But if I look at the gaps currently, I do think they're going to close in. We might see safety car in this lap, and if that is the case, that could be terrible news for Kevin West.
Yeah, we've still got 11 laps of racing action, so it's still all to play for. Oliver Knott with the chance to win here, but that 3-second penalty does not help out his chances. Gabriel Bracetti also tried to fight back into this championship. He's got a really good chance to do it now that DB19 is all the way down in P17. So this is Gabriel Bracetti's best chance here, and possibly even his final chance to get back into the championship race. But yeah, safety car does not look to be in this lap. It looks like it's staying out 1 more lap. So just excited to see how this race will pan out. It's still to play for, so make sure to stay tuned and do not go anywhere.
It looks like we will have 1 extra run of the safety car, so that is good for Kevin West. Let's hope he does anticipate on that and dive it into the pit lane now. Needs to take that drive-through penalty, and it looks like he still does not want to take it. So, not entirely sure why that is the case. And it's just overtaken DV19, I think. I'm not sure. Okay.
I don't think it's possible to even serve drive-throughs during safety car, so it does not help it out. It does not help out with anything in his chances to win, as you do need to serve that within 3 laps. But of course, with how long the safety car stayed out, he needs to do it as soon as the safety car comes in. So yeah, it's very unfortunate for Kevin, but I'm sure he can get back into this race. But it's looking very unlikely for him. Penny still in the lead, of course, under the safety car, just making sure to keep his tyres warm for this restart after a charging Oliver Knott is right behind him. But yeah, Gabriel Bracetti, of course, 3rd place, trying to fight back into that championship. So yeah, Dennis Lagnarok as well, one of the favourites to win this race. We have seen his pace in the wet so far. Epic Lexter gets a 3-second penalty, somehow under the safety car. But that means safety car is in this lap. So yeah, just making sure to slow down, get those temperature into the tyres, and I'll let you cover this safety car restart.
Alright, well, let's hope for Kevin West there will be another safety car down the line, because otherwise his hopes for a top 10 finish will be out of the window. But now Penny is dictating the pace to try and get us underway for the final 10 laps here around Monza. A little bit of a sprint. They are on fresh inters, and it looks like the power is not yet on. I think he wants to wait a little bit late, and he has gone on to the power now. But Oliver Knott was very much awake, and look at that, already almost side by side. He's going to try and slipstream it here. Needs to make a move as soon as possible, but can he get the overtake on to Penny? Penny using a lot of ERS to try and defend. Oliver going out of his way, and look at that, Gabriel is immediately going into that, and he overtakes as Oliver Knott goes a little bit too conservative into the first corner. But now down the inside, they go side by side. Keep it on the track, Gabriel. You need to make sure you finish with good points here, because DV19 is all the way down in P17, and he indeed decides to stay behind for a time being. His teammate also in P4, so that is great news for him, as Justin Chevalier has just gotten the overtake down onto Amai Pataya. I still see safety car on my screen, but that's a little bit confusing because we, of course, are on full green. And indeed, Kevin West has now come into the pit, so was unable to serve that penalty during the safety car, but has now successfully done so.
Yeah, it does not really help out in his chances for this race. Still got Gabriel Prossetti right behind Oliver Knott. He needs to get that move done as quickly as possible if he wants a chance at that championship, especially as you've mentioned earlier before. DV19 is all the way down in P17 as he is 39 points ahead in the championship. This could be Gabriel Prossetti's last chance and his best chance to get back into the championship fight. Penny does get the fastest lap with a 26.9, which just showcases how much faster how much drier actually the race has become. As Gabriel Prossetti looks to the inside, he is ahead, but that inside turns into the outside, and Oliver Knott looks to keep that position, but it's still side by side. Not anymore. Oliver Knott keeps that position, followed by David Reiswick, who is trying to eat up the crumbs of that overtake, as Epic Lexter gets a 10-second penalty as well. But yeah, so far looks to be a very close safety car restart. Of course, the safety car saying that it's still out on track when, of course, it isn't. But Gabriel Prossetti, he needs to be quick in this. I'm also expecting Dennis Lagnarok to possibly show himself, but of course, Oliver Knott goes for the move around the outside. He gets that move done, as that is Oliver Knott in the race lead, which is really good for his chances of the race as he goes really wide through there. Wouldn't be surprised if he takes a warning through there. But Penny, he is not the happiest that Oliver Knott has taken the position from him. He is right behind him trying to get that move done. But Slipstream, of course, has got a very big effect on this race. He takes a very wide line as Penny does take the lead going into turn one. You've got Gabriel Prossetti also trying to eat up there. He goes for the move. He makes it 3 wide. He's got the inside line there. Can he take the move for the leader race? He is ahead by the apex and he takes the lead of this race. Very good move to move up 3 positions there in one singular corner as Epic Lexter retires in the pit lane, unfortunately.
And another greatest race for Epic Lexer, and yeah, that safety car, which seemed to really hamper Gabriel's chances on getting a race win here. He is now back in the race lead, although Penny quite close to him. But I do notice that David Reiswick, his teammate, has got some great pace, has a little bit of a look into Lesmo too, but that's of course not place where you want to overtake, because we have yellow in Sector 1, but that is because the retired car from Epic Lexer. And that little bit look for David Reiswick now means he is under pressure from Dennis Langrock just behind him. So a very close fight for the podium, at least for a time being, as Oliver Knott has dropped into P3. Epic Lexer's decided against it. He said he got a screen freeze that cost him a little bit of time, so that did not help him out. Look at that now. Around the outside into Parabolica comes Dennis Langrock. Slides a lot there. It's not a place where you want to make that move sting. And with Oliver Knott also sliding along to Parabolica, means that David Reiswick can now get closer. But with Oliver using his ERS to defend a little bit, means that gets closer as Penny wants to have another go at Gabriel. Gabriel still going to stay ahead, breaks just a little tad later as he stays ahead, but we have a lot of position shuffles happening. DV19 still in P17 though, not able to try and overtake too much as for a time being, so he's definitely struggling, and with more and more gaps starting to emerge, Gabriel is in the hot seat.
Yeah, very good move a lap ago. Penny still trying to fight back for that position. But Gabriel Prossetti, this is a very good opportunity for him to take the lead of the championship. He cannot take the lead of it now, as the maximum points he can get is 26 if he does get fastest lap as well. Penny, he moves round the outside to that outside line. Can he make the move? He is ahead as DV19 retires from the session, and that is another safety car, which really helps Kevin West and really helps Gabriel Prossetti's championship charge. So, can we see any interesting strategy calls? Might be a bit too late in this race to switch tyres, but that looks to be a crash going out of the second. Lesmo might be a bit too late to box onto Fresh Robert, especially as the intermediates do last a fair little while, and it does look like there is nobody going into the pit lane, or maybe there's a couple going into the pit, going onto Fresh Robber.
I think especially further down the line, you can try and make that gamble. It looked like quite a few drivers have opted to do so. Tim Beyer, Lewis Jones, Omai Pattaya, Justin Chevalier, and Milena. There's actually drivers onto the dry weather compounds. Tim Beyer's gone for softs. Omai Pattaya's gone for the mediums. The rest still staying out on the inters. But I'm very interested to see how Tim Beyer can do, how he can cope. Because if we look at the track, the rain seems to be a bit less, but a dry line has emerged. But is it enough for softs? I don't think it is. But we do see a move by Tim Beyer being made. And I think this is a ballsy call. And I think it might be good as well. Because you make the call now. You are on a penalty already. Realistically, with a safety car this late, even though you're like P5, P6, you are going to fall outside the points. You have to try and do something different. And this is the right way to do so. For my Pattaya, he takes a bigger risk. He doesn't have a penalty to his name. So not entirely sure if that's going to work out for him, but we're definitely going to see if the drivers on the dry weather compounds are going to make up some places. We see in the meantime that DV19 had some technical problems with his PC, so that has caused his accident. But that means for Gabriel, prime time for him. The gap was 40 points. He's definitely going to take a chunk out of it, but how big is that chunk going to be? We will know in a little over 5 laps. But we will stay behind the safety car for at least one more lap. And once everyone has caught up, though Kevin West will need to hurry up a little bit, once everyone has caught up, we're going to go racing, and we'll have 4 to 5 laps in normal racing condition. I think it'll be 4 laps down to the line, and for Tim Beyer, it could be glory or heartbreak.
Yeah, I mean, now's a good opportunity to wind down and look at the championship. So, leading the way in the championship, you've got TF10 DB19, who is unfortunately out of this race on 107 points. Very consistent throughout the season, getting 2 wins and an extra 2 podiums as well to his name, followed by Gabriel Rossetti, that current P2 man, followed by TGF F1 race, who sadly is not in TGF anymore, but he was 3rd place and he is currently not in the session right now. This would have been a really good opportunity for him to get back into this race. But 4th place is someone who currently is on the grid and racing, is Tim Tornino, who is currently 6th place, followed by TTM Passy, who is not racing either. Then Aiden Hurt is also racing today. He is currently 16th, unfortunately. Then 7th is Dallin McTeer for the Aston Martin. He has had a bit of an unfortunate race so far, but he is currently P9 and trying to gain some points back to get a fight for the higher positions in the championship. But the constructors, it looks like it's a McLaren domination so far. As I say, that safety car is in this lap. So enough about the championship. Let's get into the safety car action and into the racing action. You've got Penny leading the way, followed by Gabriel Prossetti and Oliver Knott just behind him. That is your top 3 going into lap 23. There is only 5 laps left to go. I want to see how late does Penny leave it. Penny leaves to go now. He gets a solid restart. There is no threat from Gabriel Prossetti to overtake him. Oliver Knott is right behind Gabriel Prossetti. Can Oliver Knott try and make a move? No, he cannot. There's loads of moves back behind. Milena loses 2 positions, but that is still Penny, followed by Gabriel Prossetti, and there's loads of moving around as Tim Beyer moves all the way down and Dallin McTeer gets a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. So it does seem like those slicked tyres were not the correct strategy move, as they both drivers who went onto the slicks are now in P16 and P17, but still Penny in the lead, followed by Gabriel Possetti and Oliver Knott.
Yeah, it looks like the crossover point is about to appear, but with a mile and Tim Byer losing time to the Inters up ahead, it looks like that crossover has not happened and will not happen until we reach the end of the race here tonight. So for Gabriel, it's going to be a task. Keep as close to Penny as you can and go for that overtake at the right moment. We should, however, also keep an eye out for Justin Chevalier. His Inters are 2 laps old. As for the other drivers, they're 9, 10 and 13 laps old for everyone up ahead. So can Justin do anything with that fresher rubber? For Oliver Knott and Dallin McTeer, they are likely going to fall outside the points because of the penalties to their names, which is good news for Lewis Jones and now Aiden Hurt, who's in P13, as Penny sets the fastest lap time all the way through. But looks like Gabriel really is starting to position himself well, as we see Penny go a little bit wide into turn 1. That might open up the door for Gabriel just a little bit, but it's not enough, at least for a time being, to close in. Amai Pataya and Tim Byer, they have now really fallen out. 3 seconds, and then Tim Byer another 5 seconds down on a mile. So the dry tires definitely not the way to go. As further up ahead, the gap still within DRS range as Pekarchis now overtakes Aiden Hurt. But further up the field and to the top of the table with just 3.5 laps to go, as Oliver Knott picks up yet another penalty that really, and it will surely put him outside the points. So not a great run for him all the way through, even though on track he's going to score quite well. But we'll be looking, maybe Dennis Langrock can make a move on to him.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a little bit of a dry line beginning to form, but I don't think that is going to get dry enough for the slick runners to really capitalise off that. Maybe for the last couple of laps, you will have the 2 slick tyre runners trying to get pushed across the slack possibly, but that will not count as any points as they are outside of the top 10. But anyway, looking towards the front, we've got Penny, followed by Gabriel Possetti and Oliver Knott with that 6 second in penalties. But Oliver Knott does make the move for second place ahead of Gabriel Possetti. It might not be second place for him at the end of this race. But, it looks like Charles Sutton as well in the background, losing loads of positions there. What has happened to him? Must have been involved in an incident in that first corner. But Dennis Lagnarok also takes advantage of that to move and moves himself up to the podium positions. But it's still Penny, followed by Oliver Knott and Dennis Lagnarok, as Pekarchik gets a 3 second penalty.
Yeah, penalties at this stage, of course, are going to be detrimental for your race results. As we see Justin Chevalier starting to pick up a few more positions, now looking to close the gap onto Meow. And it looks like the fresher rubber does have the advantage, because now, after Justin Chevalier, we see Lewis Jones overtaking Dallin McTeer. So it's starting to look better for them. But how many positions can Justin really gain there? I think Oliver Knott is looking to at least finish the race in provisional P1, although the penalties will put him back, as we're now about to enter the final 2 laps, as Justin has gone past Meow just before the Parabolica, taking a closer line there, as Lewis Jones is also overtaking him, so now needs to go for more moves. He sets the fastest lap time with a 25.4, and with just 2 laps to go, we have now Oliver Knott in the race lead, and we have a yellow in Sector 3, that's Tim Byer, who's made a mistake there. Of course, we're not going to see any safety cars this late on in the race, but the driver we really need to keep an eye on is Gabriel. Will those Inters still last, or do they, or won't they be able to? Tim Byer still picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Will DNF, won't score any points anyway, so that does not matter too much. But for Gabriel, P4 now surely is just not good enough, because at P4, you pick up 12 points, you will gain 12 points, but that can also be 25. You do just a little bit better. The good news for him that Oliver Knott has a penalty, so I will give him 3 extra, but really needs to make sure he gets further up the field if he's not under pressure too much by Tim Tornimo behind.
Yeah, but yeah, that is very huge for the McLaren team as well, as they will lose the grip of the Constructors' Championship as well. There's only 2 laps left to go. Oliver Knott in the provisional race lead, but with those 6 seconds of time penalty, I will be guessing he might just about finish in the points. But Gabriel Prossetti as well, trying to get up there as Penny looks to be making a move onto Oliver Knott going into that first corner. It's now or never for Gabriel Prossetti as he is trying to get ahead of the P3 man of Dennis Lagnarok, as Penny does actually take the lead of the race and secures his chances of the win. But still, Gabriel Patesi needing to make the move done as he's being put under pressure by Tim Tornimo, as Tim Tornimo does make the move going into turn 3 or 4, I believe. But yes, that does not help Gabriel Patesi's chances, as provisionally he is P4 in this race, which is only 12 points, which is not enough points to really get him back into this championship. This is a very good chance for him to get back into that championship lead. But we look towards the front, it's still Penny and Oliver Knott. Lewis Jones is putting the pressure on Justin Chevalier, trying to make a move. Unfortunately, that will not be made just yet. But little slide from Justin Chevalier as he is trying to make the move. But Penny in the lead of the race, he goes into the final corner. He goes out of the final corner, and it looks to be a win for the Ferrari man in his hometown. It is Penny who crosses the line in first position and takes the fastest lap of the race. Gabriel Protesi, who is trying to fight for that championship, is unfortunately down in P4, but a very good race for the reserve driver of Penny, taking the win of the race.
Yeah, and once again, the reserve drivers making great showings here. Let's not forget, Gabriel was a stand-in before he was promoted to a full-time seat when he was already second in the standings, and the same goes for F1 Racer, who of course sadly wasn't here tonight. But it's a race win for the German driver as Penny picks up the race win, also with fastest lap in that final lap. So great work by the Ferrari driver. Second place goes to Dennis Langrock, and rounding off your podium will be Tim Tornimo in P3. Gabriel only doing P4, still gaining a lot of points, but not as much as he had hoped for, especially after the poor result from DV19. Then in P5, we find David Reiswick, followed by Lewis Jones, Justin Chevalier, Meow, Oliver Knott still picking up 2 points in P9. And final point scorer is Aiden Hurt in the Williams, 6.6 seconds behind your race leader. Outside the points, but still finishing here tonight, Milena in 11th, then Kevin West, Charles Sutton, Picard Schitz, and Dallin McTeer with Amaya Pataya DNFing at the final bits. We have 5 drivers that did not make it all the way through the end. But a wet race, something you definitely don't see all too often. I really thought Gabriel was going to score a lot of points, but I think the safety cars did not help him out too much, because at the end, those tires really seem to be done.
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at everybody who finished where. So it's Penny in that first position, followed by Dennis Lagnarok, then Tim Tornimo in third place, followed by Gabriel Protesi, who is trying to fight back into the championship fight, and it's Dennis Reiswich, followed by Lewis Jones, Justin Chevalier, Meow, Oliver Knott, and Aiden Hurt, rounding out that top 10. What a brilliant race to watch in this round of WR Tier 4, but it's not the last round of WR Tier 4, so make sure stay tuned for the next couple of races. What are your thoughts so far on this race?
Well, the race was quite good, and something that we haven't mentioned is because Tim Tornimo's now finished ahead of Gabriel, gets 3 extra points in comparison to Gabriel, so if nothing changes in those results, Tim was only 2 behind Gabriel, so Tim Tornimo would be your second man in the standings, 1 ahead of Gabriel, and of course still significantly behind championship leader DV19. Tim is going to pick up 15, so the gap is going to be 26 points, so that is about 1 race. But of course, still 4 races to go on the calendar, which means that we have a little bit of time to look at the calendar here now on the screen. So we've had 7 races so far. We start in Australia, where the race winner and second were separated by only 1,000 of a second. And then we find Austria was round 2, followed by Belgium, Brazil. Then we had Qatar, Abu Dhabi, and today Monza. And with 4 races still to go, next week we're heading out to Bahrain. And then it's Mexico City, Saudi Arabia, which can only be crazy. And then your final race, which will be in Japan. Now, we do have some time for the interviews, and it looks like in the interview box we have Dennis Langrock waiting, who finished in P2. So let's bring him in, and let's go for some interviews. So here we go then for our interviews for Dennis Langrock. It's a great way to score some points here tonight. He was on 2 points so far this season, but picking up a podium here, definitely going to boot him up into the championship. But after already a really good qualifying result, I think you can only be very pleased with how that race went here tonight, Dennis.
Yeah, it was a very tricky race. So with the conditions and everything like that. So yeah, quali was pace P6, got 1 lap, and the other I bottled it a little bit because turn 1 and turn 3 are so hard to get, very with the bumpers. But race, I have good start. Maybe I've got a good setup, range setup. I've changed it a little bit, got more grip out of the corners. And yeah.
Were you expecting rain at all? Because we talked about it a little bit. We were still surprised to see rain, especially for the entire race. But how was that for you?
Yeah, I was a little bit gambling. At the start, I was on wets. I thought I saw somebody started on inters. They were gambling hard, but I was starting on wets. Wanna do safe. And then I saw behind me, I think Tim was on inters and got best times.
Yeah.
And then I decided to pit. Maybe I lost a little bit places. I came out behind Gabriella. Yeah. But
Yeah.
at the end, I was a little bit gambling with going on slicks, but for 2 laps, it were not smart to pit.
No, definitely was not worth it to pit. The sad thing, I mean, you did pit 2 laps after Gabriel Petresi did, who was gaining
Yeah.
a lot of time. But yeah, then you came into the pits, and the next lap it was a safety car. So a bit unfortunate for you, but still a good run down to all the way to the end. How was that last safety car restart for you? How did that go?
Yeah, it was a little bit tricky. I've overtaked David, I think, was in front of me. I was overtaking him in sector 2, and yeah, that was very nice because after that a safety car came, and I was very lucky. Then I was behind Gabriella. I passed him at the straight, and then one guy became 2-second penalty. So tires were very hot, and yeah.
All right. Well, of course, for you, it's the best result of the season, the first podium that you've picked up so far. What were your thoughts going into the season altogether? Of course, season's not over yet, but what were your goals at the start of the season?
Yeah, it was hard season to beginning. I was getting kicked out, much races, have much got off DNF. So now it's P2, it's going better. Maybe next race we can win this.
That sounds very good. For Demizzi, for you, do you have any questions for Dennis?
No, I don't have any questions. All my questions were already asked by you. So yeah, I just want to say good race from you, Dennis. Yeah, good luck in the next couple races. Yeah, very good race.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Very good commentating. Keep going.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much commentating. Okay.
All
So,
right. Well, thank you very much for joining in, Dennis. Hopefully, we will see you at least once more in the next 4 races. Of course, still Qatar, Mexico City, Saudi Arabia, and Japan that we have left. But for now, we are going to move in the man that finished in P3, which was Tim Turnimo. Now also second in the standings, so that's interesting to note. And I'm going to give it over to you, Demizi, so you can ask Tim some questions. But first, let's move Tim in.
so welcome, Tim. Of course, you finished on the podium today. What are your thoughts about finishing on the podium today?
I mean, I thought I could do it. Um, Obviously, I haven't qualified better than the top 8 every race I've been on the podium, but I've somehow just done the race pace and just kept consistency, and it's worked out. And I think the same thing happened today.
Yeah, so of course you did make the move on Gabriel Processi into that final lap. How did you do it? What did you think of doing it at the time?
I mean, I knew I had to, I wanted to get one more position to keep the podium streak alive, and I saw that he was flashing, so I just gambled and thought he had no ERS, so I just flew past, and then I had way higher wings than everyone, so I just kind of gapped him in the second part, so I just knew I had to make a move there or I would be stuck behind.
Yeah. Have you got any questions, Smith, for Tim? Because I'm
Well,
out.
most definitely. I mean, of course, Tim, you were one of the few drivers that started on the intermediate tires in comparison to most of the other drivers that started on the hards. Reflecting back on it, did you think that was the right decision?
Um, Probably not. I think the safety car just saved us. Because obviously the wets are really bad this game, and you want to avoid them. But I think they were just quicker at this stage. And if I started on the wets, maybe I could have earlier went up the grid. But luckily, the safety car saved me, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I mean, you were making up quite good positions. You were gaining quite a bit. At some point, you were more than a second quicker than the race leaders, and then they indeed opted to go in. That's when the safety car came. Definitely helped you a little bit with the first one. But how about the second? Did that help you out at all?
Wait, the second safety car? Oh,
Yeah.
uh, I think it's just neutral. I mean, regrouped us all, but I was thinking if everyone's boxed, I have my teammate in front and I'd be screwed. But luckily, no one in front did, and only the guys behind boxed. And I already had pretty fresh tires compared to the guys ahead because of that safety car, so I wasn't too worried. So it just neutral. Didn't really help me or didn't really lose me anything. It was just nice to calm down.
All right, and then yeah, as you already mentioned at the start of the interview, you keep your podium streak alive. Now 4 in a row, first, third, second, and now third here in Monza. Next week we head out to Bahrain. What are your thoughts on Bahrain?
Um, I really like the track. I think it's a really nice looking and to drive. Well, I'm not the quickest there, but hopefully I can change that in a week time. So it's going to be exciting, and for the championship as well. I didn't even expect to be 26 points behind Dustin. I mean, obviously he had technical issues today, but I think it's going to be interesting to race in Bahrain.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary box for that interview, Tim. And hopefully we will see you again in the next couple of races. Definitely championship fight is going to amp up. 25 points, 26, sorry, that you are now behind Dustin. And with 4 races to go, I think the only thing I can say, the fight is on.
Yep, I think so too.
Right, so that was all for the interviews. Looks like our race winner is sadly not here for now, but that is not the biggest issue. Of course, we'll have more interviews in the races to come. As for Monza, I don't think it was as hectic as I was expecting, especially given the weather. But I think we can both agree, Domizzi, we've had a pretty good wet race here tonight.
Yeah, very exciting race to commentate on. Very diverse strategies as well. There were loads of strategies at play. Some started on the inters, some started on the wet, but with that safety car as well, we weren't able to see the perfect strategy. But I think some really great drives as well. Really got to show off some of the drivers' wet pace as well. Especially Dennis, who had a really good start off the line, starting P6 and going up to I think P2 before the end of lap 2. So yeah, very eventful race. Don't usually see rain at Monza, so yeah, hopefully I don't have it for my WR race later on this week because I am rubbish in the rain. So yeah.
Yeah, more action, of course, for the PlayStation side, the console side of action, of course, I should say, which is on Thursday. For tonight, though, this was pretty much it. We've already taken a look at the calendar, and as you know from the last interview, next week we're heading to Bahrain, and with 4 races to go, and your top 3 within 27 points of each other, the championship fight has opened wide up, with Dustin unable to score any points here tonight. And with Tim Turnable P3 and Gabrielle in P4, the fight getting a lot closer. Definitely to be continued next week round. As for you, Domizzi, thank you very much for stepping in tonight. So I didn't have to do this all alone. Hope you enjoyed it. And, well, maybe we'll see you again.
Yeah, pleasure for having me on. Thank you for inviting me on to join you. Yeah, very fun race to commentate on. Hope to do it again another week, possibly. So, yeah.
I will go. Oh,
All
sorry.
right. No
Thank
worries.
you for
Thank you
commentating.
again.
Bye bye.
Thank you again for joining in.
Bye bye.
See you later.
So that was Dennis Langrock once more. So I want to congratulate him once more on that podium. Although race winner, wow, I'm drawing a full blank now. I'm still looking. It was of course a reserve driver. I'm already looking. I'm looking at the standings. I'm like, where's our race winner? It was Penny, of course. Who got the race win here tonight. Was still on 0 points, but with that race win here tonight, and also fastest lap, picking up great points and putting himself up in the top 10, perhaps, of the standing. So also for you, Penny, huge shout out for standing in and immediately putting that car on the top step. This was it for tonight, though, so thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure to be back next week at the same time, 8 p.m. British Standard Time. For us Europeans, that is 9 p.m. Central European Summer Time, where we will resume in Bahrain for round 8. 4 races still to go, and with the fight up on top, very close. See you then. Good night.
Yeah.